facing extinction, there's got to be a better way, both financially and to make them more competitive. So what I did was you'd have a League One North and a League One South would be effectively the top tier of the second tier of Football League, with the first tier of Football League being a Premier League and a Championship, which would stay relatively unchanged apart from there being 4 teams relegated from the Championship, not the current 3. I'd have 16 teams, both in League One North and League One South, same for League 2 as well. I'd abolish the conference and go from there with you play 15 home and 15 away ties, 16 teams in each league. There'd be promotion, champion would get automatic promotion, then the 4 teams under that would go into a playoffs, as you do normally, 2 legs of a semi-final and a final at Wembley, and they go up into the Championship. And then you'd have 4 relegation spots in League 1. You'd have 3 go up automatically from League 2, and then 4 through 7 would be your playoffs. And then from there, relegation in League 2 would be 2 teams getting relegated. What do you think of that?
It's a tricky one. I think I agree that the regionalisation is good. I think it cuts costs, but it's splitting up the leagues is difficult. I think to have a perfect north and south divide, obviously this is not, this isn't concrete. To have a perfect north and south divide, to have equal leagues, to have a certain amount of teams going up, because you can't have 2 southern teams going up and 1 northern team going up. It has to be 2 and 2, or so it has to be even numbers going up. You can't have 3, because you can't have 1.5 teams going up from each league.
No, that's why you got 4 in a Championship.
Yeah, so you have to have even numbers go up and down all the time, because it's unfair that in the Northern Division you're playing for 1 promotion spot, whereas in the South Division you're playing for 2.
So the way you get around that is, in the Championship, everyone would know whether there was a North or a South categorised club.
Yes, you'd have to even go as far as the Premier League, because you've seen teams like Sunderland drop down to League 1 and 2. So every club would have to then be given a category of whether you're North and South throughout the entire Football League. So should, for example, Manchester United get relegated to League 1, somehow it looked possible at the start of the season, they would know that they're going into the Northern League 1 before they even get there. Granted, for a club like Man United, it's fairly obvious, but take Coventry or Birmingham, for example, should they happen to get that far, it would be a bit more tricky to, without labelling them with what they are, to know where they were going to go.
Yeah. And then what I propose to avoid the 3 southern teams and 1 northern team being in the bottom 4 of the Championship would be a dynamic relegation system where the 2 lowest point northern teams and the 2 lowest point southern teams would go down.
Yeah, because again, relegation has to be equal to for clubs, depending, there should be no differentiation depending on their geographical location.
No. So then critics would say, well, you're losing then 16 games of revenue for a season for teams, because they're only playing 30 league games home and away for each 16-team league. So to what I say to that is, you'd split the leagues then, League 1 and League 2, in half, like they do in Scotland. I know you're not a big fan of it, but for me it works. And then the lower 8 play each other home and away, which is 8 games, and the top 8 play each other home and away, which is 8 games. Get your 38 games, like the Premier League runs on 38 games. So you're losing another 8 games you set there. And that's where you bring in the EFL trophy, where you get your away days, and they'd both be set. You could play anybody then between any of the 64 teams, in my perspective, League 1 and League 2.
My problem there is you're losing 8 games, and so then you chuck in the EFL Cup. If you go out in the first round of the EFL Cup, you're still losing 7 games of revenue. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much money you saved by regionalising it, whether it works out that you're making up for the lack of gate receipts to 7 games because, for example, you're using less petrol getting from Gloucester to Newcastle.
Easily going to save money there. Then it would add more, you say about, if you go out the first round, you miss losing 7 games, whatever.
Because half the teams will go out in the first round.
But then you add that competitive nature more to that competition. And that there is the thing of making the EFL trophy more lucrative and more sought after to win for these clubs.
Is it though? Because the FA Cup adds more games to the Premier League teams, but they don't want them. They're more than happy to put out lower teams so they play less games.
True. And if teams are not looking to gain financially through revenue from
because they saved
the EFL
in petrol money,
then they can concentrate on getting promoted. And losing the conference as it stands today, the National League, would be teams would say, that's a massive issue. But it's not, for the way I've worked it out, and I put the league structure that I have up on MatchDay Review after this podcast, that there's only 7 teams who effectively would get relegated from the conference as it stands today into the conference North and South. And my argument to those teams would be, you're closer than you ever have been to the Football League, because you win promotion from an effective semi-pro league of the Conference North, Conference South, whatever they call it today, and go up, win that division. You're then in the Football League, and the riches that come with a Football League.
It's a difficult one to work out fully. This is obviously you've only done a draft, so to speak, of it. This isn't an in-depth